Surround me as the wind. Surround me as the wind might, some November wood, when birds have gone beyond that unrivalled natural chill. Surround me as the water would in submerged innocence, beyond the tropic and arctic current. Cover me in something divorced from memory, cleave with me eternity and now. I would lie numb in autumn and accept winter as one accepts a friend who drinks too much. More than this, I would learn to distinguish the season in words. Believe with me in some older order that has faded or not yet sprung. We kneel before a mythology that has never existed. Nothing to believe so far but a legacy of delusion. When he was a young man. When he was a young man, he drove his parents mad. As she grew, she began to wonder if she was the wrong one. They met somewhere or other, and since then it's been hell for both of them. She says things like, "If it was up to me, I'd rather not mention it at all," and it makes him furious. He has a leather jacket so he don't worry too much. She does macrame pillow slips and reads Simone Beauvoir. Sometimes they attack their friends if there's nothing on television. He ate dates for supper, a double Remy, a cup of tea. The simple pleasures were no longer enough. He realized the dangers of being alone if you're not an artist. He finally acquired a reputation which did him no good at all as a sort of nonentity. He had once been a crow or some bird flying in darkness, feathers of shining black moods, flesh-eating, carrion-monger. Not believing in ghosts, he is haunted by his own pretensions, having reached the conclusion that love is not a means of exchange in the open market. It is now down to the point, the blade of the knife, the noose. It is basically unspeakable, unbearable. He is only one of legions who find it unfair. Displayed before himself, an unwholesome sight, love going out like the tide, like a light, squeezing the shoreline of tears, debris of the fallen age like driftwood, rusty cans, undecipherable bits of paper tissue, who knows what lies they contain. Across the harbour. Across the harbour, 3 ships tied up, immovable on the mirror. Arc lights, colours floating, defying photography and words, the free image in time slipping away, the future leaking into the present, the difference between film and theatre, the difference between life and its opposites. The built-in decay factor itself never decaying, cycling. Art requires auditors. Nature requires nothing. Useless questions. Haunting our decaying sensations. Out the narrows a red light flashes in time, programmed to provide information in stop-and-go fashion. The difference between knowledge and wisdom. These are memories, visions of things dead. Ourselves dead and not knowing, will never know, never die, being already dead. All sensation, memory. All past while we examine. Spilt milk on the Formica counter of the 20th century. The hallucinatory hills blur darkly. The red and green lights wink conspiratorially. 3 cold trawlers asleep on a friend's couch.
St. John's, the south side in winter. The long-backed beast now settles down for a protracted rest. Slowly he stretches forward sandstone paws, gathers his granite shoulders in, and lets the snow-furred pelt of winter bind him round for polar sleep. In bowel depths his heart may still be pulsing warm, but all along that yielded frame, from corrugated tail to haunch and flank, and saurian curving bouldered neck, an icy stillness rules. Before the final freeze, the monster slides his crusted eyelids down, and then from stony ledge of lip, slow pointing day by day, he grows his giant walrus teeth that hang and hold, useless and beautiful, enamel hard, till at spring softening needle ends, pale blood of winter starts to drip, announcing soon that old Leviathan will wake and yawn his arctic armor off again. A poem for Carol Ann. The assault of youth on age. This is a shock that I can bear when arms and legs and tender hungry frame are cinched around me, the friendly tentacles of love that offer greater warmth than they would seek protection. After brief lying on my heart and urgent declarations in my ear, she pulls away impetuously to set her solemn visual examination, to look for reciprocity of love. I give her back the pledge, and then am blessed by such a smile, such heart-resting answer in her eyes, that my ramparted mind, all barriers raised by cynic time, go down like fragile dikes before the tide. Just for an instant, though, I wonder if, behind its beauty and unshadowed innocence, her glance divines the mystery of my chagrin and offers silent comfort with her love. I do not speak the question, enough that to my hellish cramping age there comes by grace and undeserved reprieve this little soft cyclonic touch of heaven, the spontaneity of 7. A Newfoundland garden. Rock and shovel strike out sparks that will not warm this acid ground until our April showers of snow, May gales and shivering fogs in June are plucked away, and winter veers to scorching sun without the grace or intervention of a gentling spring. Dig like dogs for spud growth and turnip greens. Between parentheses, Victoria Thures's day, plant and hoe and trench and think to reap, as August evening coolly drawing in before September's threat of frost may turn our greens to yellow limp and rot our spuds to pulpy mushroom ooze. God's bitterness upon this land? Perhaps his irony, to let such labor bear so little fruit, but from the toil make bodies like our enemy the rock, and yield a subtler harvest to our souls, pickled in patience and low expectation that may serve to help us endure in rougher gardens than the spud and turnip field. Brief meeting. Unconscious as a star, with eyes brighter than first creation, body apple-ripe, teen-taught, and supple as an alder bough, to her own confident, mysterious joy she goes, caring not for the world or time or me. She stops at sidewalk glass, and with a gesture deft but gentle too, she fingers back her hair, widening the frame of an early Renoir face. Then, with the same unknowing, casual haughtiness, tilts up her head and shakes the frame a little farther back, to let her total image be revealed, like morning glory, sun-roused and reflecting straight into my heart. O lithe and lovely princess of April realm, turn while I draw your Eden freshness in, and love you with these lean November eyes. Only a glance from you, one recognizing sign, to show I am not exiled from your paradise. And then go take your beauty to another 17. I would not have you fear the excess of the hunger in my look, nor guess the agony that may await brave pilgrims, even on a royal road.
Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath put her head in the oven and turned on the gas. She died, her ass sticking on gracefully out of the range. Was it symbolic for her, I wonder? Brain cooked for the family dinner. Upstairs, her children were sleeping. Her husband was out. Waiting. She walks into a room and people stare. She is not beautiful. She cuts through the conversation like fire, and she thinks, I walk into a room and cut through their conversation like fire. And the talk begins again. She sits there talking of nothing and thinks, I sit here talking of nothing, waiting. They establish themselves at once and cannot avoid each other. Desire makes it impossible to talk. Her mouth is full of laughter, and she feels, this time it will be joyous. They are edging towards each other, no way to stop it. How will it begin? She is angered to find she is trembling, betrayed. His voice is behind her, and he moves one finger from her neck to her shoulder. What is this scar? He says. Blue-lipped, she laughs, throwing back her hair. Shall I tell you about my operations? Holding her eyes. Tell me anything. And it has begun. They are sitting on the floor, and her belly, already swelling with her husband's child, does not stop them. And his wife, for all her pain, cannot stop them. They are talking in low voices. They are saying yes and no. We must, we cannot. They are slipping away. Only the wife sees them go. The child quivers in her belly. The man draws strength from her breasts. It is as they knew it would be. When it is over, she knows nothing will be the same. They carry flames and leave jagged edges where they touch. For a while they meet, something drawing them together, something wedging them apart. They can only admit desire. They cannot admit love. Her belly is enormous, and she feels she is beautiful. She is not beautiful, but her presence is a flame, and when the child is born, she bursts to exquisite fire. They are driving in his car, strangled by the end. He says, let us always be lovers, even if we never make love again. The sleeping child gurgles in the back. It freezes her into mockery. His pain solidifies. She walks into a room and people stare. She is not beautiful. She smothers the conversation like snow, and she thinks, I walk into a room and smother the conversation like snow. And the talk begins again, but slowly, like the melting of snow. And she sits there, talking of nothing, and thinks, I sit here, talking of nothing, waiting. Family. We speak love easily, my daughters and I. Words pour stickily from our lips, and you are trapped, poor fly, in our honeyed web. We press our warm bodies near you, and you are almost seduced. Our perfume rises around you, and you struggle against its sweetness. With our eyes we draw you, unwillingly, closer. In your panic you flutter savagely, then lie silent. We approach, murmuring, horrified by our crime.
She imagines herself forgetting. She imagines herself forgetting along that unforgiving shore where the limited sunshine escapes into her moistened mouth. She is not concerned with this poem, this honor, this distance. Down among the seaweed and sculptured bone, she will quickly discard these things as memory or disease, never hearing the voices from the cliffs, excusing her for walking too close to the burning sea. She believes cold and worthy of her brave thighs. Now that there are no cobblestones, now that there are no cobblestones and few old photographs, we are free at last. We owe nothing to no one. The indigenous race, we are responsible. It was our choice. Now that we have kept down the souls of garrison soldiers, and with dirt and stone moved the Beothuk once more, we can embrace this century and those to come. Once more, as in 900 or thereabout, looking into the hazy July morning, there will be Bona Vista. No obstruction of guilt and memory. But cry no more for the leaf that swirls in the wake of panic, said the young man who drowned in the harbor of North America's oldest city. It is as it seems. Don't leave me. Don't leave me, she said from somewhere underneath herself. I'm afraid of what I might do. And I didn't. Aware of who she was in some other life, the interpreter of an oral race obsessed with religion and witchcraft, the mistress of late-night ritual with soda crackers and tea. It's back to the dream for us, I said, knowing that I loved her more. Back to the rolling surf and immoral chatter, the possible rendezvous of former self, where screaming seabirds dip and plunge toward our outstretched arms, reeling toward the tumultuous shoreline and our salt, soggy weed bed, knowing we had lied and had no intention of feeding them or any other who dare crack the fog-filled night with idle threats of an eventual end.
Didymus on Saturday. I, who have trusted only certainties, save for a 3 years' dream, awake at last. Now Jesus has his grave, Judas his gold, Peter his praise, he of the ready sword. I, who believed in all my disbelief, am left with nothing but the biting shame that gnaws me for believing easily. It seemed at times a thing beyond mere proof that he was King of Judah, Son of God. His crown was made of thorns, and he was nailed fast to a narrow cross with Roman spikes. I saw him walk to death between two thieves, a little man whose face was cracked with fear, and a tall man whose eyes were dull with doom. The flesh was fixed to the complacent wood, the crosses lifted up and downward flung, jolting into the jarring earth sockets. A triple scream splintered the quiet dawn, and death could overtake them at his leisure, being so fastened. The mob shrilled with delight to see such pain, and that was yesterday, and he is dead. My world was ended with a hammer stroke. I might have known he was too just to be a king of Judah. He was too kind to be a son of God who slew the children by the muddy Nile and had the king of the Amalekites cloven to pieces in the sacred shambles. Yet hard is the awakening from my dream. I must take care to guard against more dreams. Some say that he will rise, and from his grave spring like a sleeper from a restful bed to justify his godhead. Not for me subscription to these fancies, not if he spoke to me in the voice that tuned my heart to think him God, not if he broke the bread of love at my own table, not if he were seen by John, who cannot tell a lie. And all proofs, tangible and ocular, will not convince me, save I touch the wound the Roman spear made in his dying side, press the torn palms, embrace the stricken feet. Tomorrow is the first day of the week, and I shall leave this grey Jerusalem, where he lies sleeping in the hollowed stone, never to come into his kingdom now. Nova. Caught in the sudden anger of the sun, 9 worlds and their attendant satellites, 12 gelid comets, 3,000 asteroids, 5 billion men and women, infinite animality, and 1 small spaceship, a pioneer from Cygnus, shriveled to their constituent atoms. 11 years later, the light stabbed out to Cygnus. 5 Cygnans dead. Strangers embraced weeping, enemies made up, lovers stirred closer to each other. And Joan Bantray, who had lost her second husband, said that she felt as if the world had ended. I came to Eden. I came to Eden after the snake took over, so I don't remember the old days. They tell me angels lifted above the trees like soaring rainbows, and the unmoving sun blessed all the garden with his shining love. Lambs played with lions, nobody carried a gun, and the 4 rivers that flowed in paradise reflected paradise in every pool. It was all right, I guess, but yet I think I'd find that kind of living rather dull. What could you do but sing and eat and sleep? Sing hymns, eat fruit, and sleep without a dream. Things are much different now. You have to scramble to come out on top. Lambs are for eating, lions are to hunt. No angel hangs about this neighborhood. The spinning sun is veiled in smoke and dust. The rivers are blocked with crap of all kinds, not excluding bodies of those who were too slow with knife or gun. There's always something to get you interested. The new boss likes to keep everything stirred up, and I must say he has the right crowd for it.
February 25th, 1982. Underneath this blanket there are pressed wildflowers. Last night in the still I could hear them pushing the white crust. The stars fell, and everyone rushed inside to dance to the accordion and the electric piano. Outside, the shells shocked half a dozen perfectly able men and left them twitching and stuttering. When the council bulldozed the Quonset huts in Kelly's Alley, the youngsters waited with BB guns and forks to kill the rats. "Just don't go in the place," their mothers warned. "The Yanks might have money, but they also have cockroaches." I got a French fry cutter and TV rabbit ears from the shambles of Americana. The sky dissolves like a blotted watercolor. Drops of mauve discolor my arm. We're on the same latitude as northern France. Monet's sunsets run into my face. Somewhere between dreams and disaster, schoolchildren run, smoking cigarettes and penciling beards on Queen Elizabeth. Pigeons are eating Mary Brown's chicken bones, and yet another person is learning St. Anne's Reel. I turn onto my left side and finally yawn. Para a Santa Maria Manuela. Night came, and it whispered, "Os sinos, as veeras." It was a tropical night in the thick of the town, but off in the distance icebergs moaned. The water beyond the harbor is vast. It holds endless possibilities for young men. One with a blue scarf around his neck, arms strong, ambivalent to shy facial muscles. There was no warning, no time to even pick up a book for the voyage. Old men laughed toothless laughs and ate raw fish. Musidad. Come ridículo é amor. Ha ha. But the captain served champagne for breakfast and gave us a blessing to go ashore. North Africa is a terra de bacalhau in winter. A blue scarf blows blue on the horizon. All the ships are of hard, cold steel, cold iron these days. No festive pink boys, no soccer games on the harbor front. We await you, nos amigos. We will sing and dance at your return. Out of the rustling of tall grass. Out of the rustling of tall grass, unto an upshoot of boulder and sparse fir, came the trampling of a gang of young boys. Armed with stick guns and swords, and armed better still with whoops and shrills, they advanced and gained on the sheep. Mrs. Green doesn't want that. She doesn't mind him chasing after the cats or the dogs, but they drives the sheep nuts, so she tells Mrs. King over the fence. Because I believed we all leave echoes in comforting hills and over the sides of cliffs, I walked in search of a trace or a whisper of you on the downs. I'm looking for how you lived here and played. You are more beautiful than the brightest jigsaw puzzle of Switzerland. And I have all this sunny day to fit pieces of love and pain that deform the corners of your eyes and the gesture of your hand.
Lines for my grandfather long gone. I keep one memory only of you. I am 4 and slightly shy. You are anciently old and brave among cows. It is afternoon. The yard is pale in pale light. I sit on your doorstep waiting for anything to happen. You unhook the gate, stroll through, hook it again, and stroll straight to the old church bell hanging heavily rusted in the corner of the yard. You reach out and pull the rope. The bell booms over the village, booms over the sea, the hills, the hayfields, and up into the heavens. The yard is pale in pale light. You stand quietly still. Nothing moves except your arm, your hand on the rope. I sit on your doorstep waiting for something to happen. The bell booms. In the field, the cows stop chewing. They stand in the still hay like pathetic statues, their tails bronzed in absurd geometry. On the sea, the perpetual waves roll motionless in their rhythmic run to the beach. They tilt in poised suspension above the still suspended swell. In the sky, the frivolous birds halt in their hurried flight. They hang like tiny black moons, stationary and still in the pale heavens. I sit still as stone on your doorstep watching. Your hand on the rope stops. The bell stops. The field, the sea, the sky thrive again in a confusion of movement. I sit on your doorstep watching. I wonder what in the world has happened. You come strolling down from the corner of the yard, the thinnest of smiles upon your mouth. You touch your ancient hand gently to my bewildered head. You pass me by and go into the house, the door closing quietly behind you. Homecoming. Carefully, quietly, like a thief, I steal toward the bed where you are sleeping. The serene sound of your breathing warns me well you sleep in some sort of peace, are oblivious to my dark arrival. Not wanting to wake you out of whatever warm world you breathe in, I slide as slow as a glacier into bed, wrap myself in that most familiar, most welcome of all the spaces I so bravely, so cautiously inhabit. The lovely heat of your hot body burns me all over in the darkness. I thrust gently forward and bend, touching my dry mouth to the curve of your back, then turn curled to let the night swallow me down.
A sound of seagulls. In daisied meadows where old cliffs decay, I watch the sea-wet mouth of autumn wind knock down the salt-dipped grass. And where the herring gull takes flight, I hear the rise and fall of tides, pace slowly through the bones of rock where shellfish empty out their dead. The wreckage of the old year founders in a spray that spins grey day into the snowflake night, among white driftwood dreams that lie in wedges of the shore. I slip into the lips that swallow castaways, and in dark caverns of the unfamiliar deep throw off the debris of old reveries that snag my feet, and am exhaled upon green beaches of the sun, all green, and hope, a sound of seagulls, is the spring. On refusing a beggar in Marrakesh. Your hand, a grainted claw of cracked nails and arthritic bones, reached out to me today in Jama Elfna, where I chose to look away from sightless eyes that seemed to see my soul. Dehumanized by my affluent fears that some unneeded coins tossed in your palm might bring on others of my brothers hungering in tattered rags of self-respect, I turned away. If we had shared allegiance to some shreds of colored cloth in time of war, you might have died for me, or I for you. And yet, in sunshine of an April afternoon, I passed you on the road to Jericho. Bay de Verde. When I go back and see it as it was, stripped to its granite bones by frost and thaw, I ask myself, what want of something new within the sheltered imperfection of my inner core, intensified desire to scale the sun and shadow of these grass-gulled walls? I could have stayed with graves of ancestors above the billows of this bight and tracked my way among familiar outcrops of stone piled on stone. Yet I left yesterdays in crevices of time and flung out to the burning tips of stars that streaked quicksilver through the infinite. Where thawing slopes have melted into granite tasks, I climb in toe marks of my father's boots. Joe Orton. I knew him when he just belonged to friends, and walked green morning in the London spring. We shared wild dreams a time or two when we were young, and tiptoed out from furnished flats beyond the known in ourselves. Like naked Icarus, with untamed wings, he soared into the conflagration of desire, while I turned back, a prisoner of myself, and painted on the mask of Harlequin. Nobody knows the number of my cell, but at the inquest after he was dead, the Phoenix took the stand and testified.
Night School. Ernest Hurley. I hear the teacher's heels clinking on the stone floor. I smile good night, pretending I'm brave. I sit in the back so that she won't see me watching her. She catches my eye, and I look at the wall. She comes down through rows of desks and takes my hand. 3 gold rings and hearing scales. Jack Brewer. I'm late because I had to wash up good, on account of I was clearing the storm sewer. The kids cut up my scribbler and tore the leaves out. Anyways, I'm so goddamn stunned I forget from one night to the other. You're looking good yourself, miss. Noel Slaney. I'm 56 and tired of taking orders from people who don't give a damn that I'm dying, shift by sweaty shift. When I'm done, what will they do? Give me a pick and shovel and tell me to dig myself in? Let me sit here a while, miss, where I won't hear the rocks falling in my grave. Vance Decker. How can I learn to write when the pencil takes crazy steps across the page and my hand shivers? I can swing the sledgehammer and it goes where I want, but the pencil won't stay with me. Maybe I could do better if my hands wouldn't sweat. Billy Hines. They say I'm crazy because I go to night school. But today, I could read all the names on all the bloody cartons stacked on the truck. I sat beside the driver and smiled. Miss Crowley. How can I tell Tan Chung that his skin is the color of summer hay, his eyes like brown spring pools, and when he speaks, I see butterflies hovering over plum blossoms in a tea garden. One more summer, when spring rains tumbled the waters brown, and the brook ran higher than the alder tree that marked the pool, we worried and hoped the flow would slack by June. All spring long, we made impatient trips to measure with sticks how fast the water leapt, pool by pool, to the sea below. Then one day, in the warmth of the sun, we undressed and tiptoed into the swirling foam at the pool's edge. And holding on to each other's hands, we waded, laughing, into one more summer.
Snowstorm, the survivors. We've barricaded ourselves against this creeping cold. Behind the howl and hiss outside, a visible wind, the ashy face of a storm. We have known it before, this fear, prehensile, barbed, coiled in the gut. We know it each Gothic season, when smiles are the diffident masks of the blind, and syllables quit the tongue, brittle and spent. Faces, voices decay to a pallor of silence. Soon we will form our muskox circle, hear some writhing menace shatter glass, see it palely poised upon a sill. Khmer Rouge. The feral dark exhaled them like a curse. Wordless, they took the village. Only guns spoke in terse staccatos. A mother, naked child about her legs, seeing intruders, lifted her hands, thrust forward palms, seemed to flail at the rain of fire, and they left on the night's febrile breath. In the ruined, gutted village, I saw their savage art. A woman, wife and mother, Philistine's pawn, she and the child, broken mannequins, sprawled under the pall of dawn. Happy New Year, Harry. For one last time in his fast-ebbing life, Harry would see a brand new year come in. And as he lay there on his sweat-drenched bed, drawing the sheet up closer to the face, he saw the two gray options, look ahead or back. And since inertia falls outside the tolerance of time, Harry looked back. Why was there not one single New Year's Eve more vivid and more memorable than the rest? Why was no sin, no half-remembered sentience of a guilt recalled to give authentication to a past, a history? No, it was all one bleak and shapeless blur, an empty canvas viewed through a clouded glass. Soon would the sheet be moved up higher still. Harry was caught between voids. Even an echo needs precursive sound to give it some validity. Snow, a nightmare scenario. Snow chokes roads and driveways, creeps past windowsills, threatens the doorways, piling, settling in. By day little moves, but the wind and rumour, on wires that sway and whisper, the comforting, night-clattering monsters are silent. A child who holds a snowflake in his hand sees the sad impermanence of things, feels the warm lethality of flesh, his death caress. Yet a beauty so delicate incredibly survives with the strength of numbers, grimly advances with the power of numbers. Now from the north, a white peril. This fleeting symmetry for faith and art fuels the illumined mind, but when it grows eerily, formless, uncontrolled, that mind admits a revenant, rational man's vestigial dread. Last night I dreamt of the end of all seasons, snow moving outward, taking new regions, invading even the inviolate zones. After 10,000 years, the ghosts of a tyranny, confused migrations, and man hurled back to old darkness.